Hi, I'm Dr. Susanna Bozzoni, and today is video 3 of 4 in our series on anxiety. So we're going to talk about nutrition and anxiety. Did you know that inconsistent sugar control is associated with negative mood and a decreased quality of life? In fact, symptoms of anxiety are very hard to even differentiate between symptoms of low blood sugar. I'm sure you might have felt that at some point in your life, feeling shaky, right? Feeling nausea, feeling palpitations, feeling a sense of dis-ease. Yeah, very similar, anxiety, even panic, and low blood sugars. But let me ask you, when you eat on your typical meal, right? Say breakfast, are you hungry again in 2 hours or less? Because this is a sign that your sugar is not sustaining, right? Or you're not being fully nourished at your first meal or maybe you're just not eating enough, right? So a couple of things. But you should not be hungry and be eating every 2 hours. That's not really normal if you're eating well-balanced meals, and nor is that good for you in terms of regulating your sugars. So what do we need to focus on to regulate our sugars? Well, I've seen people feel shaky, like they're having low blood sugar, and grab a string cheese. Right? So string cheese is about 70% saturated fat. And that is not going to help stabilize sugar. In fact, over the long run, saturated fat is one of the primary drivers to insulin resistance, meaning more likely trouble with your sugar down the road if we continue eating and pounding ourselves with saturated fat. So how do we really focus on stabilizing our sugar? Well, yes, protein is important, but the major thing that most people are lacking is fiber. And that's the money. So what happens when you eat a meal that's lacking in fiber is that the sugar from that meal spikes up, and then your insulin's got to spike to be like, oh, I got a lot of sugar here. I got to bring this into the cell. And so it's got to spike really high, and then it crashes you down even lower than where you started by a couple of hours, 1 or 2 hours after you've eaten. And that feeling of crashing down is, again, very much like anxiety. So what happens when you eat more fiber in your meals is that the sugar, the delivery of those more complex carbohydrates is more smooth, and it carries you over into maybe 4 or 6 hours often in order to stabilize you. So focusing on fiber is so important for mental health and stabilization of sugars and of your mood, because those correspond very closely. And by looking at those fiber-rich meals, you're also getting much more nutrient-dense meals full of magnesium and zinc and these wonderful things that are also important in mental health. So 3 quick, how do I get some fiber in quick? Well, try to get 1 to 2 tablespoons of ground flax, maybe at breakfast. Maybe at lunch, you get 2 cups of dark leafy greens, mostly for the nutrients, not so much for the fiber, but they're such a powerhouse for everything else and for your mood. That's so key. And then try to get a cup of beans every day. When I mean beans, I mean legumes like black beans, or you could do minimally processed organic soy or garbanzo beans or lentils or something like that. I'm not talking about green beans, though those are great. And so eventually you start increasing these wonderful nutrient-dense and fiber-dense foods at every meal to carry you through and stabilize you until maybe you grow to eat the colors of the rainbow on a bed of greens with a side of beans. And don't forget the whole grains. And you find that this is not only nourishing your body, reducing your risk of chronic diseases like heart disease and diabetes, but also helping to stabilize your mental health, to fuel your microbiome with those diversity of plants so that they can produce serotonin and short-chain fatty acids, reducing inflammation in both your body and your brain. So here is to a nourished you and a wonderfully calm soul. Take care.